The tide, a rhythmic sigh against the pilings, had long replaced the cadence of your former life. Each sunrise painted the same muted gray across the water, mirroring the landscape of your days. You, Seth Corbin, once moved through a world of sharp edges and urgent whispers, now occupied a small, solitary dwelling perched precariously above the docks, its windows perpetually misted with sea spray. The scent of brine and forgotten wood was your constant companion, a stark contrast to the sterile air of interrogation rooms and the metallic tang of old evidence. Your hands, once adept at sifting through shattered lives, now meticulously arranged fishing lures on a workbench scarred by years of neglect. Each barb, each iridescent feather, a small, tangible anchor in a world that had otherwise slipped its moorings. The infamous cold case, the one that had cleaved your career clean in two, remained a phantom limb, an ache beneath the surface of every mundane task. You felt its phantom weight in the quiet hours, saw its spectral outline in the shifting patterns of the bay. The public had branded you reckless, the department incompetent, but you knew, with a certainty that gnawed at your bones, that you had been right. A harsh, insistent knocking shattered the morning's fragile peace, not the gentle tap of a curious neighbor, but the demanding rhythm of authority. A beat you thought you had shed like old skin. You paused, a half-tied knot suspended between your fingers, the delicate silk shimmering in the dim light. The knocking persisted, growing louder, more urgent. It was a summons you had hoped would never come again. You moved to the door, the floorboards groaning beneath your weight, a low growl of protest against the intrusion. The uniform was new, the face unfamiliar, but the determined set of their jaw spoke volumes. This was a detective, not a social call. Corbin, the voice cut through the thick wood, muffled but clear. Detective Hayes, we need you. Yet the word tasted bitter on your tongue. They hadn't needed you when the press tore you apart. Hadn't needed you when the department stripped you of your badge. Yet, a flicker, a perverse curiosity, ignited in the quiet desolation of your chest. The detective, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes, surveyed your unkempt interior with a professional coolness. Apologies for the intrusion, Seth, but this is different. Her gaze held yours, unwavering. It's the same, isn't it? The patterns, the signature. Your breath hitched. It's stayed. The phrase staged resonated with an unnerving familiarity. It was the word that had haunted your nightmares, the precise term for the meticulous, theatrical arrangements left by the killer who had eluded you all those years ago. You need to see this, Seth. Officially, no. Unofficially, your insight is unmatched. Reluctance warred with a primal pull. You grabbed a worn canvas jacket, its pockets heavy with the detritus of a solitary existence. Lead the way, detective. The journey by patrol boat was a blur of churning water and a sky bruised with impending tempests. The small vessel cut through the choppy waves, heading toward the heart of the brewing squall. As you approached the cove, the scene materialized from the gray expanse of the water, a sleek, opulent yacht, stark white against the turbulent backdrop, tossed gently by the growing swells. Other official vessels, smaller and more functional, orbited it like wary satellites. You boarded the yacht, the deck slick beneath your worn boots. The air inside felt heavy, stagnant, imbued with a metallic scent of something irrevocably broken. The opulent furnishings seemed to mock the grim reality. The victim lay in the main salon, stretched across a plush, white leather sofa. A man, impeccably dressed, his eyes wide and vacant, staring at the polished ceiling. There was no visible struggle, no overturned furniture, only an unnerving orderliness. A small, precise wound, barely visible, marked his temple. Clear, evident, like the others. But it was not just the wound, or the unsettling calm of the scene that sent a shiver down your spine. Arranged meticulously on the polished mahogany coffee table before the victim were three objects. Three identical, sleek, leather-sealed briefcases. Each one was pristine, locked, and untouched. They were not merely present, they were displayed. You knelt, your gaze fixed on the briefcases, then swept across the victim's face, the precise wound, the careful staging. This wasn't merely similar. Have they been opened? The detective shook her head, her face pale in the ambient light. No, sealed. We haven't touched them, waiting for forensic analysis. You reached out, your gloved fingers hovering inches above the cool leather of one briefcase. The old case, the one that had ruined you, had featured similar, enigmatic objects left at the scene, pristine and sealed. Not briefcases, no, but items of equivalent, baffling symbolism. The killer's signature, a taunt left for those who sought to understand. Your eyes met the detective's. The storm outside raged, a symphony of wind and rain against the hull, but the real tempest brewed was in you. The phantom limb throbbed with renewed life. The killer hadn't just returned. They had never truly left. The years of quiet isolation, the carefully constructed walls, crumbled around you. You, Seth Corbin, we're back in the game, whether you wanted to be or not. And this time, you were determined not to fail. You stood on the polished deck of the yacht, anchor storm closing in, sealed briefcases resting with an almost ceremonial precision beside the victim. The air, thick with the scent of salt and impending rain, crackled around you, each gust of phantom's breath against your cheek, carrying the metallic tang of distant lightning. Your gloved fingers, still hovering from the previous moment, now settled gently on the cool, unforgiving leather of one of the briefcases. Obsidian against the pale deck, they hummed with a silent, malevolent energy, echoes of a past you had painstakingly buried. Not briefcases then, no, but objects imbued with the same baffling symbolism, left pristine and sealed. The killer's enigmatic signature etched not in ink, but in the chilling precision of their placement. The old case, the one that had fractured your life, had begun with such a deliberate, unnerving flourish. Now, the canvas was different. The details shifted, but the brushstrokes felt undeniably familiar. A low growl of thunder rumbled in the distance, at percussion against the heavy gray sky, mirroring the tightening knot in your gut. You could feel the familiar pull, a dark current attempting to drag you back into the abyss you had fought so fiercely to escape. The scent of ozone mingled with something sharper, something metallic and final, clinging to the polished teak and the taut lines of the vessel. This was not merely a crime scene. It was a carefully constructed tableau designed for an audience. And you, Seth, felt like the intended viewer. A shadow fell across the gleaming deck, not from the roiling clouds, but from a figure approaching. The lead investigator, his face a canvas of weariness and etched lines, stopped a few feet away, his gaze sweeping over the scene, then settling on you. His eyes, tired but sharp, held a flicker of something akin to desperation. "Seth," he began, his voice a low rumble, almost lost beneath the rising wind. "They asked for you, specifically. You said nothing, your eyes still fixed on the briefcases, their silent promise of untold secrets. The turn they hung in the air, a vague, bureaucratic weight. You knew they meant the powers that be, the ones who had watched your career unravel, the ones who now, in their moment of profound bewilderment, remembered your unique, albeit tainted, insight. We're nowhere," the investigator continued, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. "No forced entry, no struggle. And these?" He gestured vaguely toward the briefcases, his brow furrowing deeper. "They're sealed. No prints. Nothing. Just sitting there. The signature," you finally murmured, the word tasting like ash on your tongue. "It was always about the signature." He nodded, a grim understanding passing between you, a silent acknowledgement of the specter that now hovered over this new atrocity. "Too much like your old case, isn't it? The quiet precision, the meticulous placement, the complete lack of noise." The wind whipped a strand of your hair across your face, and you pushed it back, your gaze finally meeting his. "You're desperate. Desperate enough to overlook my reputation." A faint, almost imperceptible shrug. "The family of the executive, they're connected. Powerful of your connection to the unsolved. They believe you might see something we don't. Something from the past. The past is a graveyard," you stated, the bitterness sharp in your tone. "And I have no desire to wander its paths again. But this isn't just a walk, Seth. This is a mirror. Something only you would truly understand." You waited, your jaw tight, the storm's approaching fury of physical presence. "We found a specific etching," he said, his eyes now locking onto yours, holding your gaze with an unnerving intensity. "On the underside of the victim's watch, a small, almost invisible symbol, a stylized serpent swallowing its tail. It wasn't reported in the original files of your case, but it was found on all the victims you investigated. A detail you only shared with internal review after everything fell apart. A detail only you knew." The words struck you with the force of a physical blow, silencing the rising wind, quieting the distant thunder. The hour rose. A secret detail, one you had discovered late in your ruined investigation. A final, desperate attempt to prove your theories, dismissed as a figment of your obsession. A detail never released to the public, never officially catalogued, buried deep within the confidential reports of your disgraced departure. "No," you breathed, the single word a raw expulsion of air. This wasn't merely a copycat. This was the same hand reaching across the years, mocking your failure. Or perhaps it was a ghost that had never truly departed. The lead investigator took a cautious step closer, his voice urgent now. "This isn't just about one executive, Seth. Cases dismissed as unrelated, as random acts, but the same lack of struggle, the same meticulous staging, and in 3 of them, going back 30 years, the same symbol, hidden away." The yacht pitched harder, the anchor chains groaning under the strain. This wasn't just your killer returning. The killer you had failed to catch hadn't just returned. They had been here all along, a silent, unseen architect of death, leaving a trail of quiet, symbolic devastation. You closed your eyes for a brief moment, the image of the serpent devouring itself searing into your mind. When you opened them, the weariness was still there, but beneath it, a flinty resolve had ignited. The past was not just calling, It was screaming, and this time you knew you had to answer. "Show me everything," you said, your voice low and steady against the roar of the storm. Every file. From the very beginning, the rain began to fall in earnest now, a sudden deluge, washing over the deck, turning the polished wood slick and dark. You felt a cold dread seep into your bones, deeper than the chill of the storm, but beneath it, a spark ignited. This wasn't just your kill, not anymore, but it was irrevocably your problem. The sealed briefcases lay where they had been placed, gleaming faintly in the dim light filtering through the churning sky, impervious to the spray. You knew, with a certainty that clawed at your throat, that whatever lay within them was the thread connecting the past to this tempestuous present. The yacht groaned again, a deep, resonant sound as if protesting the weight of the encroaching storm and the grim cargo it now carried. You moved, your movements stiff, a residue of the shock still clinging to your limbs, but purpose now drove you. Securing the briefcases was a brutal task. The wind tore at your coat, whipping the rain into stinging needles against your face. Each briefcase felt weighted with lead, resisting your grip as you wrestled them toward the companionway. The polished deck, treacherous with water, threatened to send you sprawling with every lurch of the vessel. You dragged them inside, the heavy thud against the cabin floor echoing the drumbeat in your chest. The storm raged, a primal scream outside the reinforced windows, but inside, a different kind of storm was just beginning. Getting ashore was a desperate scramble. The small tender, usually a graceful extension of the yacht, bucked like a wild beast in the swells. The dockmaster, a grizzled figure in oilskins, eyed you with a mixture of suspicion and pity as you disembarked, the briefcases clutched tight. You offered no explanation, merely a curt nod, pulling your collar higher against the relentless wind. The city lights, blurred by the downpour, offered no comfort, only a stark reminder of the world you were now re-entering. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper and stale coffee, a familiar, comforting musk. The storm howled outside your window, a fitting accompaniment to the tempest churning within you. Under the harsh glare of a single desk lamp, you began. The briefcases, surprisingly, were not locked with conventional mechanisms. Instead, a series of intricate clasps, almost decorative, secured them. The first case sprang open, revealing stacks of photographs, forensic reports, and witness statements. This was the new case, raw and immediate. The second held what appeared to be personal effects: a worn journal, a peculiar silver locket, a small, intricate carving of a bird. You laid out the documents from the first briefcase, carefully arranging the crime scene photographs, the meticulous arrangement of objects around the body, the specific ligature marks, the unsettling absence of struggle. Your fingers traced the lines of the printed reports, your eyes scanning for details, for anything that screamed anomaly. Then you turned to your own files. Dusty boxes, crammed with the ghosts of a decade past, were dragged from beneath the bed. The scent of old paper filled the air, thick and cloying. Faded photographs, brittle reports, your own handwritten notes, scribbled in the margins, questions unanswered, theories unproven. You spread them across the floor, a chaotic mosaic of failure. Hours bled into each other. The rain outside subsided to a steady drizzle, replaced by the relentless ticking of an old clock. You moved between the new reports and the old, a silent, methodical dance. You compared the placement of items, the estimated time of death, the method of entry, the precise wording of the initial police reports. The perpetrator, if it was the same, had refined their craft, or perhaps simply waited. It was a seemingly insignificant detail that snagged your attention, a tiny burr in the fabric of the meticulously woven narrative. In the new crime scene photographs, a specific decorative knot secured a heavy velvet curtain to a wall hook. It was an elaborate knot, almost artistic in its complexity, one not commonly used for such a mundane task. Your breath hitched. You remembered it. You dug deeper into your old files, past the official reports, into your personal, annotated collection of secondary photographs and sketches. There it was, a crude drawing, almost an afterthought in one of your early notebooks, depicting the same knot. In the original investigation, it had been dismissed as irrelevant, merely a peculiar way the victim had secured a piece of art. The official report simply noted, curtain secured by an ornate knot. No one had thought to photograph it in detail, to analyze its unique structure. No one but you. This wasn't just a knot. It was a signature, a flourish of identity, almost a taunt. It was the killer's personal stamp, left behind for those who truly saw. And only you had seen it then, and only you saw it now. A subtle discrepancy, an overlooked detail, but one that screamed volumes to your reawakened mind. The phantom had returned, or had never truly left, merely changed its canvas. And you, Seth Corbin, were the only one who recognized the artist's hand. The tension in the room thickened, a palpable entity, as the pieces, long scattered, began to slot into place with an unnerving precision. The yacht at anchor storm closing in. Sealed briefcases became a swaying cage, a polished tomb tossing on the agitated waves. Rain lashed against the portholes, each gust a phantom hand pushing at the hull. The groan of anchor chains was a mournful dirge, a counterpoint to the thunder's low growl that vibrated through the very deck beneath your feet. The cold dread from moments ago still clung, a damp shroud, but beneath it, the spark ignited, a fierce, defiant ember. You moved from the deck's exposed tumult, the salt spray a sharp sting on your face, into the cabin's comparative quiet. The storm's fury was muted here, a distant roar, yet its presence pressed in, making the air thick, electric. On the polished table, the two briefcases waited, sleek and impenetrable, their clasps gleaming faintly in the cabin's subdued light. They felt heavy with unspoken truths, with the weight of years and lives. Your fingers traced the cool, hard lines of the first case. It was a relic, the leather worn smooth in places, a testament to countless openings and closings. You remembered the day it first landed on your desk, its contents promising clarity, only to deliver a labyrinth. The same meticulous craftsmanship, the same subtle scent of aged paper and metal. A shiver, not of cold, but of recognition, ran through you. This was it. The link, the tether pulling you back into the current. With a deliberate click, the latches sprang. The lid rose with a soft sigh, revealing a meticulously organized interior. You lifted the first one, the paper crackling under your touch. Old reports, witness statements, forensic summaries, the familiar detritus of a case that had chewed you up and spat you out. The second briefcase was newer, its exterior less worn, but equally sealed. Its contents, you instinctively knew, would bridge the gap between then and now, between the past failure and the present horror. You opened it with a sharper sense of urgency, the storm outside seeming to intensify with your rising pulse. Photographs of the recent victim, stark against the clinical white of the crime scene, stared up at you. The killer had not changed, only the canvas. As your gaze swept over the new evidence, a subtle displacement caught your eye. It was no larger than a deck of cards, polished to a dull sheen, completely out of place amidst the official documents. This was not standard procedure. This was a deviation. This was the killer's voice. You reached for it, your fingers brushing the smooth, cool wood. No clasp, no lock. It was simply a lid, fitted with precision. You lifted it. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, lay a single, tarnished silver locket. It was old, intricately carved, its surface dulled by time and neglect. But it was not the locket itself that froze you. For the one who sees but does not act. The echo persists, Seth. The words were a hammer blow, striking at the very core of your being. Only the investigators and the killer knew it, and you. The storm outside roared, a sudden violent crash of thunder shaking the yacht, making the cabin lights flicker. This wasn't just a new crime, it was a personal challenge. The killer knew you, knew your history, knew your failure, and they were taunting you, dragging you back into the very nightmare you had tried to bury. You clutched the locket, the sharp edges digging into your skin. The determination that had sparked on the deck now blazed, fierce and unyielding. This wasn't just about justice for the victims anymore. It was about proving them wrong, about silencing the echo, about catching the phantom that had haunted your waking and sleeping hours for years. The briefcases, once mere containers of evidence, now felt like open wounds, bleeding secrets and accusations. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within, the yacht pitching violently, but you barely registered the movement. Your gaze was fixed on the locket, then on the crisp photograph of the new victim, then back to the aged files of the old. The connections snapped into place, sharp and unforgiving. This wasn't just a return, this was a declaration, and it was aimed squarely at you, Seth Corbin. The game had begun anew, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. Your past, your reputation, your very soul were now on the table. The phrase, a phantom limb of your past, twisted in your gut. The echo persists. It was a whisper from the abyss, a chilling confirmation that the specter you'd chased into the shadows all those years ago had returned, or perhaps had never truly departed. A cold fire ignited in your veins, a resolve hardening the soft edges of your long-held despair. This wasn't just another crime. It was a challenge, a taunt aimed directly at you, Seth Corbin. The city's official response was swift, a predictable cascade of pronouncements and assurances. You watched from the periphery, a ghost among the living, as the lead detective, a broad-shouldered man with eyes like chipped flint, a former subordinate who now viewed you with a mixture of pity and contempt, held court before a phalanx of cameras. His voice, amplified by the bluster of the morning news, filled the sterile air of your cramped apartment. "We have identified a person of interest," the detective declared, his gaze gaze unwavering, a colleague of the deceased, with significant financial entanglement in a recent public dispute. We are confident this individual will provide the answers we seek. The face of the new suspect, a nervous-looking man with thinning hair and a twitching jaw, flickered across the screen. You know him. This was a convenient narrative, a neatly packaged explanation for the public, but it felt wrong, a thread fray at the edges. You moved, a silent predator, driven by a gnawing certainty. The official investigation would pursue the obvious, the loud, the easily digestible. Your path lay in the quiet discrepancies, the subtle echoes only you could hear. The victim's apartment, a penthouse overlooking the churning harbor, had been left in a state of carefully curated chaos, signs of a struggle that felt almost theatrical. And the note, the one the public wouldn't see, the one that resurrected your nightmare. The detective's words had been unambiguous. The new suspect, a man named Henderson, had motive, opportunity, and a recent history of threatening the victim. A solid case on paper. The original killer, the phantom you knew, never left such obvious breadcrumbs. Their methods were precise, almost surgical, leaving behind a signature that was both unique and maddeningly elusive. The previous victims had been chosen with an almost poetic rationale, their deaths orchestrated not just as an end, but as a statement. You found yourself drawn to the docks, the salty air biting at your face, the sky bruised with the promise of a storm. The new victim had owned a yacht, a gleaming vessel named the Siren's Call, now anchored a short distance offshore, bobbing restlessly with the swelling tide. It was there, you reasoned, away from prying eyes, that a man of his stature would conduct the business that might have led to his demise. And if the new suspect was truly the killer, perhaps he had made a mistake there, a misstep the official team, blinded by their ready-made narrative, might overlook. Access was a minor hurdle. A single security guard, hired by the family, nodded you aboard, his eyes heavy with the weight of the tragedy. The storm was closing in fast, the sky a shifting canvas of deep grays and bruised purples. You moved through the opulent cabins, your senses heightened, searching for anything that didn't fit. The official team would have swept for DNA, lifted prints, but you were looking for something else, the killer's voice. In the main salon, a large mahogany table was littered with the remnants of a hastily abandoned meeting. Scattered papers, an overturned coffee cup, the faint scent of expensive cigars. Your eyes, trained by years of sifting through human wreckage, scanned every surface, and then you saw them. Stacked neatly against the far bulkhead, almost out of sight, were 3 sealed briefcases. They looked identical, made of burnished leather, each secured with a complex combination lock. You knelt, your fingers tracing the smooth, cool surface of the first briefcase. The official report had mentioned financial documents, but nothing about these specific items. These weren't haphazardly left. They were placed. Your mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Henderson, the official suspect, was known for his bluntness, his lack of finesse. Would he have left such a precise arrangement? A sudden lurch of the yacht, a deeper groan of the wind, rattled the cabin. The storm was upon you. You focused, ignoring the rising tempest. The briefcases, identical, but one detail snagged your attention. The small, almost invisible scuff mark on the top right corner of the middle briefcase. A specific brand, a specific model, favored by a specific clientele. But it wasn't the scuff itself that caught you. It was the lack of one. The original killer had always left an item, a calling card of sorts, meticulously cleaned, almost sterile. This scuff, however faint, was a human touch. You remembered the meticulousness of the original killer. Every detail was planned, every surface pristine. This scuff, however minor, was an anomaly. It spoke of haste, of a less refined touch. A detail that screamed not the phantom. Then a glint beneath the table, half hidden by a fallen chair, was a small, ornate silver letter opener. It was a beautiful piece, a serpent coiling around a polished obsidian blade. But your gaze wasn't on its artistry. It was on the tiny, almost imperceptible scratch near the hilt. A fresh mark, and then you saw it, a faint, almost invisible smear of what looked like dried ink caught in the scratch. Your breath hitched, an ink so rare, so unique, that it had been a dead end in the original investigation. The official suspect, Henderson, was known to use standard, mass-produced black ballpoint pens. The storm outside raged, rain lashing against the windows, the yacht groaning under the assault. The sealed briefcases, the specific ink, the subtle deviation from the original killer's pristine signature. These were not the blunders of a desperate colleague. They were too deliberate, too specific, yet subtly off. The official investigation was chasing a ghost, but not the one you knew. This new crime, with its convenient suspect and its carefully placed clues, felt like a meticulously crafted distraction. The killer you hunted was not Henderson. You had just found the first snag, a deliberate misdirection designed to send everyone down the wrong path. The game had just grown infinitely more complex. Your gaze lingered on his thin lips, the way his jaw worked, chewing on an invisible grievance. He was a small-time predator, a jackal nipping at the heels of the powerful, but the phantom you hunted was a lion, patient and precise. This man, Henderson, had no place in the intricate tapestry of the cold case, no thread connecting him to the chilling artistry that defined the true killer's touch. The pieces simply did not fit. You dismissed him with a quiet certainty, the screen fading to black, leaving you once more with the ghosts of your own making. The air in your cramped apartment grew heavy with the scent of old paper and stale coffee. Maps unfurled across the scarred table, red string connecting locations, dates, names. The cold case files, brittle with age, lay beside the fresh reports of the latest brutality. You traced the lines of the old photographs, the carefully placed objects, the unnerving stillness of the scenes, the subtle, almost imperceptible details that had gnawed at you for years. Each victim, a different life, a different setting, yet an echo persisted, a faint hum beneath the surface noise of the investigation. A line in a preliminary report snagged your attention. The latest victim, a man named Sterling, had a passion for antique maritime instruments, a collector of the rare and the forgotten. His last known location before his disappearance pointed to his personal vessel, a sleek cruiser known for its meticulously maintained interior. The Phantom, you realized, often chose environments that mirrored some aspect of the victim's life, twisting their passions into a stage for their own grim performance. The sky above the marina was a bruised purple, heavy with the promise of a breaking storm. The wind whipped at your coat as you approached the pier, the rhythmic slap of water against hulls a mournful cadence. A uniformed guard, a young man with wary eyes, nodded you through, respecting the badge you no longer officially carried, but which still held a phantom weight in your pocket. The interior of the yacht was a study in understated luxury, polished mahogany gleaming under the emergency lights, bass fittings catching the dim light. No obvious signs of struggle, no overturned furniture. You moved through the salon, the galley, the sleeping quarters, your senses extended, searching for the discordant note. The air was thick with the scent of salt and expensive wood polish. Your fingers brushed against a silken cord securing a heavy velvet curtain in the main cabin. It was tied with an intricate knot, a complex weave of loops and passes, more decorative than functional, a work of art in miniature. You paused, your breath catching. That knot, your memory, a vast, chaotic archive, flickered to life. Not just any knot, but a specific, almost ceremonial tying. You'd seen it before, not in a textbook, not in a casual setting. You closed your eyes, the image solidifying behind your lids. A faded photograph of the first victim's study, a small, hand-carved wooden box holding a single, pressed flower. The box had been secured, not with a simple ribbon, but with this very knot, a rare Turk's head variation, almost impossible to replicate without specific knowledge or practice. It had been dismissed as an eccentric flourish, a detail too minor to pursue. Now, seeing it here, securing a curtain on a yacht, the knot screamed its significance. It was a signature. The Phantom Killer wasn't merely leaving bodies. They were leaving a craftsman's mark, a silent boast of their skill and their specific background. This wasn't about rage or impulse. This was about ritual, about a twisted homage, perhaps to a craft, a tradition, a specific lineage. The killer was not just a murderer. They were an artist of death, bound by an unseen code, a meticulous devotion to their chosen medium. Your gaze drifted to a small, built-in desk in the corner of the salon. Each was sealed with a small, brass padlock, glinting dully in the low light. They weren't disturbed, weren't forced. They were placed. The briefcases were an extension of the killer's meticulousness, a further layer of the puzzle, a taunting invitation. What secrets did they hold? Secured with the same deliberate intent as the knot that now burned in your mind. The storm outside finally broke, a torrential downpour hammering against the yacht's windows, mirroring the tempest raging within you. The Phantom wasn't a ghost. They were a living, breathing entity, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs woven into the very fabric of their crimes. They hadn't returned. They had simply continued, unseen, their macabre masterpiece unfolding across decades. The hunt had changed. The air, thick and bruised, pressed down upon the marina. You felt the shift in the atmosphere, a low growl emanating from the distant horizon as the storm, a coiled serpent, readied its strike. Henderson's nervous twitch, imprinted on your mind's eye, had pointed you here to the glinting masts and the uneasy lull of the water. Your borrowed skiff, a humble shadow, cut through the choppy gray, a stark contrast to the opulent vessels it navigated. Its polished hull reflected the tumultuous gray, an obsidian mirror to the brewing chaos. Rain began, a hesitant sprinkle at first, then a determined drumming against your slicker, providing a welcome curtain for your clandestine approach. You secured the skiff to a rusting cleat on the yacht's stern, the metallic groan lost in the rising wind. The yacht felt deserted from the outside, a ghost of luxury. Yet, a faint amber glow seeped from a port window, and the low thrum of a generator vibrated through the hull beneath your hand. Each step on the polished deck was a calculated whisper, a feather's fall. The storm's crescendo was your ally. Masking the creak of the hatch you eased open, the subtle friction of hinges yielding to your touch. You descended into the yacht's belly, a world of hushed opulence and the distinct scent of expensive leather and salt. The air grew warm, heavier. Voices, low and urgent, drifted from a salon further within. Henderson's voice, a familiar, reedy whine, threaded with a new, more profound anxiety, and another. Daver, you pressed yourself against a bulkhead, the cool wood against your cheek, and peered through the ornate archway. The salon was bathed in the soft glow of recessed lighting, illuminating a scene of tense deliberation. Henderson, his face pale and slick with sweat, stood before a large mahogany table. Across from him sat a figure, back to you, broad-shouldered and still, a silent monolith of power. On the table, stark against the polished wood, lay several sealed briefcases, now open, their contents spilling out. Your eyes, keen and practiced, swept over the scattered papers. They weren't ledgers of illicit finance, nor maps of drug routes. These were older, brittle documents. Nervousness jeopardizes the sanctity of the work. Henderson wrung his hands. But the new investigation, they're asking questions about the pattern, about the signatures. Signatures. The word hung in the air, a key unlocking a forgotten chamber in your mind. You remembered a detail from your old case, a specific, almost artistic flourish left at each scene, dismissed by your former colleagues as a morbid coincidence. Now, seeing these clippings, a horrifying mistake began to form. The killer hadn't just returned. They had never left. Henderson was merely a custodian, a small cog in a much larger, more terrifying machine. You glimpsed a photograph, sepia-toned, of a young man, eerily similar to one of the earlier victims. And then, a small, engraved silver locket, glinting among the papers, identical to one described in a report you'd memorized years ago. The cleansing continues, the deep voice stated. Almost a benediction. A necessary purification. We cannot falter now. Not when the final phase is so near. Cleansing. Purification. Henderson, the jackal, was merely servicing a lion. A sudden, sharp crack of thunder shook the yacht, rattling the very floorboards beneath you. The powerful figure looked up, their head turning slightly. You froze, every muscle screaming for stillness, your breath caught in your throat. Did they hear something? It was the storm's cover enough. A second passed, an eternity. He moved towards the salon, his path directly intersecting your hiding place. You were trapped, poised on the knife edge of exposure. Your instincts, long dormant, surged to life. With a silent, desperate lunge, you flattened yourself against the wall, slipping into a narrow recess just as the crew member passed, his uniform brushing your arm. The faint scent of brine and engine oil wafted past. He continued into the salon, speaking in a low voice about the worsening storm. You exhaled, a ragged gasp you hadn't realized you were holding. Your heart hammered against your ribs, a frantic drum against the hull. You had seen enough, more than enough. This was no new killer. This was the same, weaving a tapestry of blood across decades. You retreated, your movements now more urgent, a controlled scramble. The storm had broken in earnest, rain lashing the decks, wind howling like a banshee. You reached your skiff, the small vessel bucking wildly in the waves. As you cast off, a figure appeared at the yacht's stern railing, silhouetted against the turbulent sky, watching the churning water. You couldn't discern features, but the sheer stillness spoke of an unwavering vigilance. You rowed, muscles burning, the yacht shrinking behind you into the maelstrom. Henderson was a minor player, a sniveling intermediary. You had just glimpsed the architect, the true puppeteer, and the scope of his ghastly ambition. The storm raged, mirroring the tempest now brewing within you. The salt-laced wind whipped at your coat, a furious prelude to the deluge descending. Each gust is a taunt, a reminder of the time you've lost, the lives snuffed out while you grappled with ghosts. The words from the previous chapter, cleansing, purification, final phase, echo in the roaring air. No longer abstract pronouncements, but a chilling manifesto. Henderson, the desperate errand runner, merely cleared the path. You now understand that true architect moves with a conviction born of something far more insidious than simple greed. This is a crusade, and the crusader, you realize with a sickening lurch, is not a stranger. A name, a face, long relegated to the periphery of your shattered memories, now snaps into sharp focus. The prosecutor, not the one currently handling the case, but the prosecutor from your cold case, the one whose unwavering gaze met yours across the courtroom, whose impassioned closing arguments failed to sway the jury. He was a man obsessed with justice, a pillar of the community, whose career was built on integrity. Yet, beneath that veneer, you now perceive a chasm of righteous fury, a belief in a justice so absolute it could only be self-administered. The pattern of victims, the specific nature of the perceived transgressions it aligns with the cases he championed, the ones he lost, the ones that festered. Your rented sedan, a borrowed husk of anonymity, skids to a halt at the private dock. The sky above is a bruised canvas, bruised purple and black, shedding its first heavy tears. Rain begins to lash, blurring the outlines of the sleek vessels moored like sleeping leviathans. Your gaze sweeps across the names, your breath catching on a polished brass plate. The Aegis. Agile, a protector, an ironic, twisted moniker for a vessel that likely held the truth of a predator. The storm's fury amplifies here, the yacht swaying gently, a cradle for secrets. The air is thick with the scent of ozone and the metallic tang of impending rain. A raw, primal smell. Your hand, steady despite the tremor in your gut, pushes against the cabin door. It yields with a soft sigh, revealing a plush interior, eerily calm amidst the external chaos. Each step you take inside is deliberate, measured. The carpet muffles your approach, turning you into a phantom. The main salon is opulent, a stark contrast to the grim reality you've pursued. You scan the room, your eyes darting over polished mahogany, leather upholstery, and framed seascapes. Nothing immediately seems out of place, yet an invisible tension clings to the air, a silent hum beneath the growling storm. That you see it on a low table. Nestled between two untouched crystal tumblers, sits a single, leather-bound journal. It's too neat, too deliberate. Your fingers trace the embossed cover, the texture cool and unforgiving. Inside, the meticulous script confirms your horrifying suspicion, an ideology of purification, a detailed chronicle of each cleansing, each life deemed unworthy, each narrative twisted into a justification. The words mirror those Henderson uttered, but here, they are the source code, not merely the echo. Your stomach clenches. The sheer scale of the deception, the decades it spanned, is a suffocating weight. A creak from behind you, the subtle shift of floorboards. You don't need to turn to know. The air grows heavy, charged with a predatory stillness. Seth Corbin, a voice, calm and resonant, cuts through the storm's roar. Always the tenacious one. A shame your tenacity never quite reached its full potential. You pivot slowly, your hand instinctively dropping to the weight at your hip. Standing in the doorway leading to the galley, silhouetted against the dim light, is the former prosecutor. He holds a small, ornate pistol, its polished metal glinting. You've been busy, you state, your voice flat, devoid of emotion. Busy playing judge, jury executioner. I was merely correcting the failures of a broken system, he counters, his voice gaining a dangerous edge. A system you, Seth, were once a part of. A system that allowed the guilty to walk, that failed to deliver true justice. I merely finished what others began or neglected. He gestures with the pistol toward the journal. You understand now, don't you? The necessity, the cleansing. A wave of nausea washes over you. This isn't just a killer. This is a zealot convinced of his divine right. Henderson was just a mother pawn, wasn't he? Another loose end you tied up. A convenient tool, he admits, a flicker of something akin to pride in his eyes. He believed in my vision for a time, but he was weak, compromised. The final phase required a more delicate touch. The yacht lurches violently as a particularly strong gust of wind slams into its hull. Rain drums against the windows, a frantic rhythm. He raised the pistol, aiming it squarely at your chest. You were always too close, Seth. Too close to the truth, too unwilling to accept the uncomfortable realities. You interfered then, and you interfere now. You leap, not towards him, but to the side, kicking at the leg of the table holding the journal. It topples, sending the book skittering, creating a momentary distraction. He fires. The shot cracks like thunder within the confined space, tearing a splintered gouge in the mahogany paneling where your head had been moments before. The acrid scent of gunpowder instantly permeates the air, mixing with the braying. The struggle is quick, brutal. The confined space, the rocking of the yacht, the storm's relentless assault, all conspire to disorient. You duck under his swinging arm, driving your shoulder into his midsection. He grunts, stumbling back against a bulkhead, the pistol clattering to the floor. His strength, though aged, is formidable, fueled by his twisted conviction. A desperate tug of war ensues, the pistol caught between you, pointing wildly. The yacht pitches again, more violently this time, throwing both of you off balance. You slam into the wall, the impact jarring your teeth. He uses the momentum, twisting, trying to wrench the weapon free. You hold fast, your knuckles white. Then your eyes catch sight of them. Beneath a navigational chart, tucked neatly into a waterproof compartment, are two sealed briefcases. They are identical, pristine, their polished surfaces reflecting the dim cabin lights. Is it the ultimate proof? With a surge of adrenaline, you twist your body, using his own momentum against him, sending him sprawling. He cries out, a sound of frustrated rage. You seize the moment, rolling away, securing the pistol, and training it on him. He lies gasping, his chest heaving, his eyes still burning with that fanatic zeal. "It's over," you say, your voice ragged. He merely laughs, a dry, humorless sound. Is it ever truly over for those who seek justice? Ignoring his rhetoric, you move to the briefcases. Your fingers fumble with the clasps, the click echoing loudly in the sudden quiet that falls between the storm's roars. Inside, meticulously organized, are files, photographs, financial ledgers, and a detailed, handwritten manifesto. A list of names, not of past victims, but of future ones. And at the very top, scrawled in bold, decisive strokes, is your own name, Seth Corbin. The final phase. It wasn't just about cleansing the world. It was about cleansing his own past, erasing the failures, including the detective who dared to question his absolute truth. You are not just the investigator. You are the next target, the ultimate symbol of the system he despises. The storm outside rages, mirroring the tempest within you. The architect of perceived justice, the lion, was never truly hidden. He was always there, behind the mask of a righteous man, ready to consume you. But it's the last entry in the ledger that freezes the breath in your lungs, a cold, sharp blade of understanding. A single name, meticulously underlined, a name you recognize from the original cold case files, a name whose disappearance was dismissed as unrelated. A tragic accident. Following it, a date just days from now. And then, a series of coordinates etched in a different hand leading unerringly to this very stretch of water, to this very yacht. The orchestrator. Your eyes lock with theirs, and the world tilts on its axis, the deck beneath you swaying not just with the ocean's tempest but with the sheer weight of recognition. You always were tenacious, Seth. The adjudicator's voice cuts through the wind's shriek, devoid of the gravitas you remembered, replaced by a brittle, almost gleeful edge. This wasn't just a killer returning. It was a ghost, a shadow from the periphery of your professional demise, now stepping into the full, horrifying light. All those years, you manage, your voice a rasp against the gale. You let me fall. You watched me lose everything, knowing you were the one behind it all. A faint smile plays on the adjudicator's lips, a cruel twist of satisfaction. Sacrifices, Seth. Necessary sacrifices. The system, your system, failed them. It failed the innocent, time and again. It needed a corrective hand. And you, with your rigid adherence to procedure, your inability to see beyond the statutes, you were simply in the way. A convenient scapegoat, I confess. The yacht lurches violently, the crashing waves against the hull a deafening percussion. Rain lashes against the portholes, blurring the already dim light. You grip the edge of the table, steadying yourself, your gaze never leaving the adjudicator. And the final act? You challenge, your eyes sweeping over the ledger, the name of the last intended victim burning itself into your memory. Who is the last one to pay for your warped justice? The adjudicator steps further into the cabin's central space, revealing a heavy, antique brass astrolabe in their hand, its polished surface reflecting the faint light. The final piece, Seth, is not a who, but a what. A statement, a testament to the enduring failure of institutions. This yacht, Seth, it belonged to the very man who orchestrated the cover-up of the original crime. The one that broke you. He thought himself untouchable. Now his vessel will become his tomb, along with the evidence of his complicity and a final symbol of my work. A low hum begins to emanate from beneath the floorboards, a guttural thrumming that vibrates through the deck. Your eyes dart to the floor, then back to the adjudicator. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was an execution. The storm, the isolation, it was all part of the macabre stage, the ultimate vanishing act. All the loose ends, tied up neatly by the ocean's embrace. You, the disgraced detective, finally succumbing to your demons, taking your last, desperate lead to a watery grave. The yacht groans, a deep, mournful sound, as another colossal wave slams into its side. You know, with a clarity that cuts through the fear, that this is it, the culmination of decades, the answer to the phantom, the redemption you so desperately crave. Your eyes, accustomed to the gloom, find the adjudicator's silhouette, the brass astrolabe catching the brief, harsh light of a distant lightning strike. Not like this, you growl, your determination hardening into resolve. A fire ignited in the depths of your weariness. You will not let another victim fall. You will not let this monstrous charade be the final chapter. You take a step forward, the floorboards creaking under your weight, your gaze fixed, unyielding. The hunt is over. The fight begins. The yacht bucks, a wounded beast against the relentless ocean. The storm, though still a roaring presence, feels different now, less a direct assailant, more a receding fury. You taste salt and copper, the metallic tang sharp on your tongue, a grim souvenir of the struggle that just tore through this cabin. Your breath comes in maggot gasps. Each inhale a sharp protest from your ribs. The cabin is a wreck. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, the faint, acrid smell of ozone still lingering, battling with the deeper, more unsettling scent of resolution. The absence is profound, a sudden void where a monstrous presence once stood. The cold, dark waters have claimed their due. You push yourself upright, a groan escaping your lips as your muscles protest. A jagged cut bleeds sluggishly on your forearm, a crimson line against your pale skin. Your hands, trembling slightly, find purchase on the polished mahogany table, now scarred and splintered. The silence, broken only by the shriek of the wind and the groaning of the yacht's timbers, is deafening. Your eyes, burning with exhaustion, scan the floor. There, half hidden beneath a fallen bulkhead panel, are the briefcases, the very objects that drew you into this tempest, the final pieces of a puzzle decades in the making. You kneel, the movement sending a fresh wave of pain through your battered frame, and reach for them. The first briefcase is heady, its weight a promise of damning truths. With a click, the clasps yield. Inside, meticulously organized despite the water damage, are ledgers. Pages upon pages of dates, names, locations. It's all here. The exact times, the precise methods, the macabre artistry. The second briefcase holds more. Photographs, faded with age but still starkly clear. Blueprints not just of this yacht, but of the other locations where bodies were found: the old warehouse, the abandoned factory, a secluded dock. Each schematic annotated with precise marks, ingress and egress points, blind spots, surveillance camera locations. The killer was the architect, not just of structures, but of fates. The name etched subtly on the corner of several blueprints is a jolt, a familiar signature, one you dismissed as a professional courtesy, a colleague's mark on shared projects. The architect, a man of impeccable reputation, a pillar of the community, whose precise mind was twisted into something grotesque. He had moved among you, a ghost in plain sight, pulling strings, observing the fallout from his horrific art. The irony stings. The very person you'd trusted with insights into the structural integrity of crime scenes was the one meticulously crafting them. The yacht continues its slow, rhythmic sway, a cradle rocking you towards an uncertain dawn. The justice you sought, the closure that felt perpetually out of reach, is here, tangible. A distant thrum breaks through the storm's fading roar. Another vessel. Rescue. The faint, steady pulse of an engine growing louder. You hear voices, muffled by the wind. Then the distinct crackle of a radio. Mayday received. This is Coast Guard vessel Argus. We have visual on the yacht. Preparing approach. The arrival of the authorities is inevitable. A return to the structured world you'd abandoned. You are no longer just Seth Corbin, the disgraced former detective, but the one who has faced the ghost and lived. The one who brought the truth, however brutal, to light. You gather the briefcases, clutching them like a lifeline. The evidence is undeniable. The struggle is over, the monster vanquished, but the processing has only just begun. The physical aches will fade, the cuts will heal, but the deeper wounds, the echoes of the hunt, will linger. As the Coast Guard vessel draws closer, its powerful searchlight cutting through the remaining gloom, you look out at the vast, indifferent ocean. The storm is truly breaking now, the clouds parting to reveal a sliver of bruised purple sky. You have walked through the labyrinth and emerged, but the path ahead is still shrouded, redefined by the ghosts you finally laid to rest. The resolution is not an ending, but a raw, aching beginning. You have paid a heavy toll, and the aftermath will demand its own reckoning. The air, thick with the scent of brine and the metallic tang of an approaching tempest, hums with a low, resonant frequency. You stand on the polished deck, the wind a growing whisper against your ears, tugging at the collar of your coat. The waves, once gentle lapping, now slap against the hull with a restless urgency, mirroring the thrum beneath your own ribs. Each briefcase, a dark sentinel, holds the culmination of your solitary pursuit, the brutal truth meticulously gathered, cross-referenced, and laid bare. The storm on horizon, a bruised purple bruise against the fading light, feels less like a threat and more like a final, dramatic punctuation to the chaos you've navigated. The hum of the engine, the rhythmic sway of the vessel, it all serves as a backdrop to the quiet intensity that settles within you. You are preparing to re-enter the world you abandoned, not as a supplicant, but as a deliverer of undeniable proof. The room where you present your findings is stark, functional. Fluorescent lights cast a harsh, unforgiving glow on the faces gathered around the large, oak table. A senior investigator, her expression a careful mask of skepticism and professional curiosity, nods for you to begin. The lead detective, the one whose eyes once held only pity for your fractured theories, watches you with an unnerving stillness. You open the first briefcase, the sound of the latches clicking echoing in the sudden quiet. You don't speak of intuition or gut feelings. You speak of patterns. The first victim, you begin, your voice steady, though a phantom tremor courses through your veins, a ghost of the past. The official conclusion was a botched robbery, a random act of violence. But the placement of the body, the specific item taken, it was never about theft. It was about the artifice asterisk of their lives. Your gaze sweeps across the faces, noting the subtle shifts in their posture. Each death was a chisel stroke against the marble of societal expectation, an act of perverse commentary on the carefully constructed facades these individuals presented to the world. You lay out the first set of photographs, enlarged documents, and a detailed timeline. You speak of the killer's meticulous planning, the layers of misdirection, the almost theatrical staging of each scene. The old cases, the ones that had consumed you, the ones that had cost you everything, are woven into the fabric of the new crimes. You show the undeniable hand of the same architect of despair, the signature elements subtly evolving over decades, yet undeniably present. This, you continue, tapping a finger on a magnified detail in a crime scene photo from years ago, then on a similar, almost identical detail from a recent case, is not a coincidence. It's a deliberate, calculated echo. The second briefcase yields digital analyses, encrypted correspondence, and a forensic linguistic report. You detail how the killer used seemingly innocuous online forums, hidden within layers of benign discussion, to select victims, to study their public personas, and to plant subtle, coded messages that taunted the authorities. You connect the final dots, linking a specific, obscure literary reference found at an old crime scene to a newly discovered piece of evidence, a cryptic note tucked into a seemingly unrelated item from the killer's most recent transgression. The lead detective, his face etched with a mix of grim understanding and grudging respect, finally speaks. You were right, Corbin. The words, rough with acknowledgement, are not an apology, but a stark, undeniable truth. The senior investigator nods slowly, her earlier skepticism replaced by a profound, unsettling comprehension. You close the final briefcase, the soft click echoing the closure of a chapter that once threatened to define your entire life. The storm outside, though still present, feels less violent, its fury receding with the setting sun. The world outside the stark room is still the same, yet it feels irrevocably altered. You walk away, not whole perhaps, but reshaped. The path ahead is not clear, not yet defined by the familiar comfort of a badge or the structured pursuit of justice within the confines of a system that once cast you out. But you carry a new purpose, a quiet resolve forged in the crucible of your ordeal.